Welcome to a Legacy Enchantress video. This is Spatula of the Ages. I'm going to do a rundown, a tournament report of the Saturday challenge from July 2nd. I chose for this tournament to play what I'm calling four-wheel Druid, a Enchantress list running the combo of Devoted Druid, which is a mana dork, but it has the additional text that you can put a -1/-1 counter on her to untap her with Swift Reconfiguration. This is an enchantment from the Kawigama Neon Dynasty Commander supplement. It's a flash aura. It can enchant a creature or a vehicle for some reason. Well, I suppose that is relevant for redundant copies. Mainly it can enchant a creature. The enchanted permanent becomes a vehicle. It has crew 5, and it loses all its other card types, such as creature, or enchantment, or whatever. So the way that this works is you cast Swift Reconfiguration on the Druid. The Druid, first of all, gains haste, since it is no longer a creature. It can tap for green mana, and it can keep putting -1/-1 counters on itself, and that doesn't matter unless you crew it. So don't accidentally crew her, and you've got infinite green mana. With that infinite green mana, you can play out a bunch of enchantresses, draw your deck, or at least draw until you find a Living Wish, or if you already have one in hand, and then just Living Wish for Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, and that is usually sufficient to win a game, even if you have nothing else. That's the combo we're playing in this deck. For that reason, we are running Living Wish. I have tried the four-wheel Druid thing, the combo without the Wish, but the problem is Wish provides both. It's a 2/4 Devoted Druid. We have one copy in the main and one in the board, and it's also the third part of the combo, which is the actual win condition, in that it can just become an Emrakul. So this combo can theoretically go off turn 2. Turn 3 or 4 is more likely. We can Green Sun Zenith for the main deck to Druid, or we could just draw into her. And again, another thing that's powerful about this combo is that unlike other combos that exist with Devoted Druid, this one gives her haste. So you can kind of just win out of nowhere, which is a powerful effect to have, obviously. That said, after a bit of testing, I cut back to the one Devoted Druid, because the combo in and of itself is a bit fragile. It relies on a creature that can be simply lightning bolted or Swords to Plowshare in response. And obviously it's vulnerable to counter magic or discard. And it can, either half by itself is of limited value. The Swift Reconfigurations are taking the place of On Thin Ice or Elephant Grass. That is, the slots that would be dedicated to dealing with aggressive creatures. It is not as good as On Thin Ice in this respect, because it does not actually remove the creature from the battlefield, so a creature with relevant text, notably things like Hull Breacher, Meddling Mage. These effects stay on the battlefield. It does have one advantage, which is that it has Flash, which means it can take out something like an end-of-turn Merit Lage. Of course, you're stuck with the riddle of whether you do it then or wait till their turn. It depends on whether you think they have Crop Rotation or Prismatic Ending. Because even if they... you can do this in the attack step, and it will knock the creature out of combat, even if this is destroyed in the same step. So that's neat. The other benefit of Swift Reconfiguration is you can actually play it defensively. You can play it on a Sithis in response to a Lightning Bolt or Swords to Plowshare, and it will save it from that, in addition to the card draw and life gain. Same for Destiny Spinner, or, if you're slow rolling your Devoted Druid. I guess you could do it to Gloomshrieker, although not terribly useful. So that's it for Swift Reconfiguration. Devoted Druid by itself, again, it's just kind of a mana dork, which the deck didn't particularly need. So just the one of, she's not a completely dead draw by herself, but she's not great. The rest of the deck list is focused more on the mono green than some recent lists I've worked on, because Devoted Druid combo provides mono green. So if you have this infinite mana but your hand is full of white cards, it's not actually great. You can't really do anything with it. You have to wait to untap, which isn't an ideal position to be in. The only white cards we're actually running are the Forsythis, which I do think is a good default starting place for any Enchantress list right now. The 4 switch reconfigurations, and I'm running 4 Paladin class. And I'm running 4 Paladin class because of the combo. I like Paladin class in general in Enchantress, but besides when I was first testing it, I wasn't running 4. But because this combo is vulnerable not only to counter magic, but to removal, I think that the Paladin class is very useful, because you can at least ensure, if you play it correctly, that your Devoted Druid doesn't get 2-for-1 by a lightning bolt. And then, yeah, so that's the list. We're running 2 Zeniths. Again, these are target tutors for the Devoted Druid, but they can also just get, an Argothian Enchantress or a Destiny Spinner or a Sithis. They can also get this one of Gloomshrieker. This is another card from Kawigama Neon Dynasty. I'm a big fan of it. It is an enchantment creature, and it's an Eternal Witness, essentially. It does require 1 black mana if you're not Zenithing for it, but we're already splashing for Doomwake and Grist in the Wishboard, so it's not a huge deal, and we have Abundant Growth and Utopia Sprawl to help, in addition to the one of Bayou. It has this additional clause that if it's going to die, it just gets exiled, which is, I think, just there to prevent infinite loops, which we're not particularly interested in anyway. And then it has Menace, which is actually surprisingly relevant in attacking Planeswalkers and in attacking Monarch opponents. So that's the main board. Sideboard is mainly a wish board. So you've got your free removal with Solitude, some land drops. We are running Boseiju, another card from Neon Dynasty. It just fills a lot of holes. It's rarely ideal against except for a handful of specific matchups, but it is very flexible, and it also can just become green mana, which isn't irrelevant. Sometimes you just have a handful of threats and you just need a Living Wish for green mana, so you can play that Mary's Guile and continue developing your board. Most of the Wish board is 2-drops. We've got the Argothian. We've got 3 redundant copies from the main deck here. Devoted Druid, Destiny Spinner, Argothian. 3 Hate Bears, Skooz, Teague, and Oof. A couple of 3-drops in Night of Autumn and Grist. Doomwake Giant to clear out Death and Taxes and things like that. The one of Emrakul, which can be cast, by virtue of having gone off, or as part of the combo kill. The last slot is just a one of Choke. Just have access to that card. Obviously, a very powerful effect in Legacy. Notable exclusions include Endurance. I found Endurance weak against the graveyard decks that I feel like we can actually beat with this deck. So rather than running Endurance, I have opted to go with Skooz. I found Skooz a lot more effective against the matchups like lands or green-white depths, or even Uro-based decks, where we actually, I think, have a chance. And this way we still have the ability to mess with someone's graveyard. But yeah, it's just not Endurance, it's Skooz. Other notable exclusions from the sideboard. I mean, there are many, many targets you can run in a wish board, like, Tabernacle, Plague Engineer, Wasteland. There are many targets, obviously, so you do have to choose. I think Endurance is really the big one that requires explanation. Main deck exclusions. For a long time, I've been advocating getting off of Solitary Confinement. I know some people have a hard time letting that go, but it's just not really good anymore. The whole point of Solitary Confinement was that it essentially provided a combo kill, in the sense that there were just a huge number of decks that couldn't beat Solitary Confinement with an Enchantress in play, especially game 1. That's not really the case anymore. So it's just sort of a bad protection piece. I don't recommend it. It's very situational. It's terrible against any kind of control grinding deck, any deck running Prismatic Ending, or any kind of Narset effect, any kind of, Boseiju main deck. It's not going to do what you want it to do. I don't recommend it. You're going to have a bad time. Sterling Grove is another one that a lot of people like. I think you can justify one Sterling Grove. The Shroud effect can be really relevant in a lot of matchups, especially, honestly, post-board, which is why if I do run it, I tend to like it more as a sideboard one-of than, or potentially two-of, rather than like a main deck card, because it is good against Force of Vigor and stuff. Yeah, I don't think it really cuts it anymore overall. Besides the protection, the tutor is really weak. It's a 3-mana card disadvantage tutor. So you're really just running it for the protection, which again isn't necessarily relevant. So main deck, it's pretty questionable in my opinion. Okay, let's go into the games. Match 1, Game 1, we are on the play and are immediately presented with a test. So this hand has turn 1 acceleration, has a bunch of good cards, but has nothing actually to cast turn 2 except a spinner, which you generally don't want to just run out your spinners into removal. Not if you don't have a follow-up. So if we don't draw a land, we're in trouble. Even if we draw a forest rather than a white source, we're still not great because 2 of our cards are white. The Gloomshrieker will require a 3rd color on top of that. So I think this is actually a mulligan, despite having a lot of potential. I don't think it's worth the risk. This is also pretty questionable. However, going to 5 really hurts. If the opponent just Prismatic Endings or Mirror's Guile, then we're in prey mode. Then we have, 17 outs, because the Sanctum at that point won't be generating mana. But it does have the turn 2 Argothian, so I think I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to bottom the redundant Swift reconfiguration. Return 1 play is pretty obvious. Alright, now we hope that one of our top 3 cards is one of the 18 remaining lands. I didn't run the numbers on that. I think it's pretty high. Cloudpost. Okay. Well, the good news is there's basically going to be no disruption from the other side. The bad news is Cloudpost can be kind of rough because we're both sort of uninteractive, inevitability-based decks, but they're usually a turn ahead of us. However, we are running a combo today, so maybe we're actually favored here. Okay, so what does our guile show us? Okay. So this is extremely interesting, right? Because we've now got the combo in hand and the 3 mana to cast it, but we can't crack either of these fetches, therefore can't play any cards in our hand. I'm going to opt to just make the land drop and go. Unfortunately, Mirror's Guile is not Sylvan Library or Sensei's Divining Top. It can only look at the top 3, so if there's 3 cards you really want, you're stuck just looking at them for the moment. Okay. I will take the plains here so that I can at least play out the Argothian. I suppose there's an argument for just playing the Druid, but if they run something like Pithy Needle, they can actually shut off the combo, because even though they can't stop Druid's mana, they can stop the untap. So rather than give that information away, let's just drop the Argothian. We would cast it for free next turn off infinite mana, but it doesn't matter. So we'll get 2 cards off of... Actually, yeah, no, it's better to do the Argothian first, because this way we draw a card off the Swift reconfiguration. And we actually, although we'll have infinite mana in a second, we won't necessarily be able to do anything with it if we don't draw more green enchantments or a Living Wish. Just going to go through their turn. They play an Expedition map. See, this is what I mean by like dirty inevitability deck. Next turn, they're going to have an absolutely buck wild amount of mana. And we'll probably just lose the game. They'll probably, Ceaseless Hunger 2 of our lands or whatever. And we'll just be too far behind to be able to do anything. But we'll be able to go off this turn. Okay, so I'm just going to take the Druid and then crack the fetch to clear the top of the library from those lands that will just stall our draw engine. It was actually wrong to get the Savannah because another out besides green enchantments would have been the ability to just go get the Savannah and cast one of these white enchantments. So I made a mistake here. I should have just gotten a forest, played the Devoted Druid off the 2 forests, and the Swift Reconfiguration off of the plains. And that way, a Windswept Heath or the Savannah are live draws for this Paladin class to keep the engine going. I'm just going to let it rip now. We've had a wild growth. That's great. This combo is also pleasantly easy to execute. You just keep clicking on it. And it doesn't even matter, because in the 1 mode, when it's tapped, you can only untap it. And when it's untapped, it doesn't even matter if you randomly put an extra -1 counter on it. It has no relevance at all. So Utopia Sprawl is good. Now that we drew this forest, we can play the forest and get white mana off of playing the Sprawl on it. And the same for the Abundant Growth. So now we do have 2 white mana off Utopia Sprawl and Abundant Growth. And we've also obviously drawn a bunch of green enchantments. And there's the Living Wish. So the game is now over. I'm gonna... So, one cool thing about this combo as well is once it's... If they don't have removal for the Druid as a creature, any effect like a Boseiju or Force of Vigor won't do anything because you can simply make infinite mana in response. There's no other cost to these. These aren't sorcery speed abilities. You can just keep making mana. I played against one lands opponent who had like double Force of Vigor and clearly kept for that reason. And, you know, was very disappointed to find that I was just able to keep making mana and that didn't matter at all. So yeah, I mean, the game is over. And I was saying, so the combo is easy to execute. You just keep clicking on it. It doesn't matter if you put extra -1/-1 counters on it. You can just click through it in comparison to, say, you know, Allurin Acerric, which is a nightmare, or Auroch Salvagers with Lion's Eye Diamond, which is also a nightmare to click through. This combo is super user-friendly. Okay, let's go to game 2. Match 1, game 2. It appears that we did not sideboard anything. Which makes sense. I mean, this is, you know, the Paladin classes are obviously not especially useful. So there's an argument that those could go for something else. But they are 1 mana enchantments, and like I said in the last video, or the last game, this is just a race. So 1 mana enchantments aren't bad. And Living Wish, sometimes, for some versions of Enchantress, if I'm running Living Wish, but I don't have a really good target against the Cloudpost deck, I'll take out the Wishes and just bring in cheap stuff to try to go faster, because it's a race, and all that matters is going off before they go off. But that's not the case here because we have Boseiju, which is a good target. Teague could potentially be a good target depending on what their list is. If they're running something like All Is Dust or Ugin. So we'll just leave it as is. This hand, it does have acceleration. That's good. It only has a turn 3 Enchantress currently. We do get an extra draw, and then this is kind of a dead card. It's a extremely... this is probably on the lower end of keepable hands, and I think you would be justified in shipping this back and just hoping for a faster one. But it does have, you know, an Enchantress, if not a great Enchantress, and acceleration, so... and has potential. Okay, so we find out now that they're on green, and they are on Reclaimer. What was our draw? Another Paladin class, not very inspirational. Okay. So see, Swift Reconfiguration, pretty useless against the Reclaimer. It doesn't stop, like, On Thin Ice would remove this creature that is, you know, pretty effective at developing their board for them. So we'll just develop our board. And here's where the good news comes in. Opponent had mull to 5, and they did not have a third land drop, which is absolutely devastating for them. This being a race of two, like, what we can call slow combo decks, them missing a land drop would already be bad, but because they're also Cloudpost specifically, and they just are relying on their lands, that's kind of a death knell to not make your third land drop. I'll go ahead and save the life. Because I have the Miri's Guile, this is a valuable fetch. Yavimaya allows me to use it for mana without having to sacrifice my future shuffle, which I might need for the Guile. Or might want for the Guile. So we're just one druid away from the combo here. Once we find our devoted druid, we are good to go. They could have Force of Vigor now that we know that they're on green. Obviously, with double Cloudpost, Paladin class doesn't stop Force of Vigor, but it can force them to tap awkwardly or underdevelop on their turn if they want to keep Force of Vigor open. And again, Force of Vigor doesn't actually stop the combo. We found a Zenith, so next turn we have the win. And we've got a bunch of green shit in hand to go off with, plus some more white mana. So yeah, next turn it's basically guaranteed that we win. So we just have to avoid losing this turn, which, since they've missed so many land drops. So again, Outland Liberator, like Force of Vigor, doesn't really matter here. It won't interrupt the combo in a meaningful way. The Druid is not a target for Liberator until this hits, and once it does, I have infinite mana, so yeah, they concede. Alright, next match. We are up against Kanakin, who is the, the champion developer of Gyruda Bomberman. I don't know if it's mono white. It's white with, I think sometimes there's splashes, sometimes there's not. But usually like various white Prison-y cards, Auriok Salvager's combo as a finish with Gyruda as either additional value, a way to mill Lionside Diamond into the graveyard, or another copy of Salvager's. So it's another sort of mid-rangey combo deck. Again, probably normally faster than Enchantress, but with our combo, maybe not. So we've got a good start. We've got the good start, in fact, as I call it, which is turn 1 acceleration on a basic forest, into another land, into a 2-mana Enchantress, and a 1-mana enchantment. And we actually have also the ability to protect her if we want to do that, although generally we would prefer to use this as a kill condition, but... And then Gloomshrieker is backup if anything happens to Sithis that doesn't exile her. So, not a fast start from the opponent, just Eldrazi Temple. This does suggest potential Thought-Knot Seer on turn 2, another situation where, on Thin Ice would have been a lot better. But no, it's Chalice. Okay. Chalice is annoying, but... So the thing about Chalice decks is... the Chalice doesn't stop the draw trigger, 1. It used to be annoying because we do obviously run a lot of 1-drops. And, in the past I've run Replenish also as a way to take advantage of that. So, all your stuff gets countered, but then you can just draw into your Replenish, bring it all back. But now we have Destiny Spinner, and Destiny Spinner just shuts off Chalice completely as long as she's in play. So we've got 2 of those, 2 Zenith, and then 4 Living Wish that can also find Spinners. So generally Chalice decks, the Chalice part is not so difficult. Plus post-board we could have Zenith for Night of Autumn as well, or just have Night of Autumn as an additional draw. Karn is scary, so we're just cycling through cards here. Because, unfortunately, because, you know, the abundant growth isn't coming into play, it's only drawn one card instead of two, which does suck. I'm a little loath to give away the Swift reconfiguration information, which is also part of why I did register Snowlands instead of, just because this is a real tournament. In leagues, I avoid Snowlands when I can because I'm really over Snowlands after the Oko era. It's a bit of a traumatic thing. So we're just cycling. We'll be able to attack the card down. They got Lion's Eye Diamond, so, you know, they could be gearing into Lattice. But because this was Sithis and not Argothian, we can stop them from latticing this turn by just being able to attack Karn down to 2. And then hope to get this Gloom Shrieker into play. This Prismatic Vista, unfortunately, does not cast the cat. So we need to find another Heath or the Bayou or a Spinner. So far, none of those. Okay, now they've got a blocker, which is a big problem. They do have to spend this turn upping Karn, and they have the Ballista. So things aren't looking great. But there's the Bayou. Brain Sithis back. Now I've got two attackers, one of whom has Menace. They are going to play an additional blocker. I'm going to go through this slowly. Grow their blockers. And they're going for the Lattice. So I believe in this situation, I can't read my opponent's mind, but I believe that they are not registering that Gloom Shrieker has Menace, because they are sacrificing all their resources in order to... I didn't even notice this card. They're sacrificing all their resources in order to get this Lattice lock, but because we can actually kill the Karn, it's not a lock. And there's the Lattice. Spinner is a fantastic draw. So we do the attack. This is all we can do. They can't block both. They attempt it. Yeah, it's an illegal block. They're now realizing that their Karn is dead. My Sithis died. That's fine. We are going to go aggro mode. They are hellbent. They've got a couple of creatures and a Chalice, which won't do anything because we drew the Spinner. So I am happy now that I kept around these Swift reconfigurations, because I can take their creatures out of the equation and just race. They're at a much lower life. We gained life off of Sithis, and they have Ancient Tomb. These Swift reconfigurations will also grow our Elemental. Their draw is another Chalice. Unfortunate for them. It does grow their Smiths, but they're not going to matter because they're about to become Cars. The Carification of the Smiths. I'm just going to cast this just to make the Elemental bigger. At this point, Enchantress Engine is irrelevant. I'm just going for aggro here. Notably, they're also relying on Ancient Tomb as part of their mana, so even if they came up with an answer to Spinner this turn, they'd be stuck with an extremely limited amount of mana. Okay, so Gloom Shrieker is Menace, a seemingly irrelevant line. I actually single-handedly won this match, or this game. Score 1 for the cat. Let's go to the next one. Okay, game 2. Sideboard. The Paladin classes seem weak. Not only are they a Chalice deck, I mean, not only are they not running instants, they're also a Chalice deck. So those seem pretty weak. Those can go. I brought in the Knight of Autumn, and I brought in the Oof. Now, Oof is actually not free in this build, because awkwardly, Oof stops our own infinite mana combo. The Druid becomes an artifact, right? So it can't activate its abilities if Oof is in play. That said, I do think it's more effective versus them than it is versus us. We can still play the rest of our game plan. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. and we brought in the third Destiny spinner. I guess my thought here was, if I'm unlikely with the 3 Destiny spinners and the 2 Zeniths and the Knight of Autumn, I'm unlikely to want to spend a Living Wish answering Chalice. So I can just remove Chalice from the equation of things that I might need to deal with via the Wish board. Just, have all those answers main deck, probably draw into 1, and then go from there. So this is a very good start. We have turn 1 acceleration if they don't start with Chalice. If they do start with Chalice, we can still turn to Sithis. We have Oof here. I'm going to keep it. There is an argument for other stuff too, like, Scooz is also a viable card against the Bomberman part of it. And, can just also be a relevant beater on its own. Knight of Autumn is a great pickup. It's another Chalice. I do think opponent might be overvaluing Chalice against me. Like, I have Knight here, and I'm going to opt to just kill their Saga rather than the Chalice. I can get a spinner if I really need to. I'm much happier getting rid of this mana and this tutor and leaving them with just this stuff, and they have no other land drop. So I'm actually, I guess I just get Oof here and just, deny them any future artifact mana. I'm pretty sure they run artifact lands, Ancient Den. So yeah, just going with the mana denial and beatdown plan. And then next turn we can play some Enchantresses anyway, and see how that goes. So, next one. Okay, match 3, game 1. So this hand, yeah, you can't keep this hand, unfortunately. It does have a lot that it can do with 1 mana, but the only Enchantress we have here is 3 mana. You get redraws. Paladin class might be really good here. Switch reconfiguration might be good, but it's not worth the risk. This is another medium hand, but it does have mana. So we can, we don't have black mana. We can ship the Gloom Shrieker. Lead on Paladin class, which will be good if our opponent is on blue. Opponent is on Ancient Tomb into Chalice. Okay, well, we can run our Sithis into this without worry. Another Tomb. Okay, the Thought-Knot's takes our Zenith. We could pump here, but I think I want to start trying to draw into answers, those more enchantments, cards that matter. Instead I draw Forest. Not great. Okay, more lands. Not exciting. I do have a 2/3 Sithis. So, we do need to start drawing something that's not a land here. Opponent is also playing Cloudpost now, so they're on some sort of big Eldrazi. Okay, this stuff would have been great to draw last turn. I think it's too late now. Yeah, if we had drawn that stuff, well, okay, so Kozilek's not game over. It's not great. We got a 1. Okay, we never found a Zenith or a spinner. There's the Zenith, way too late. So that was pretty unfortunate. Just too many bricks. Too many turns of just land, land, land. At any point there, a spinner pretty much closes the game, but it did not happen. So this is another one where Paladin class is not good. Paladin class obviously is generally here for the blue decks. It is also doing some double duty against potential Plague Engineer decks. with the second level. But yeah, I mean, mainly for those things. So we can take those out, bring in the knight again, the spinner again, and then Oof doesn't seem as relevant here. I brought in Gaddick. Huh. There's an argument for it. I don't know if that's good or not. Gaddick doesn't cost as much. Sometimes if you're running like Hallowed Haunting or Cast Out, Gaddick can be more double-sided. But in this list, it's only hitting Zenith on our end. So maybe that was the reasoning, and just, you know, because it's very possible that they're running something like All Is Dust or Ugin, it seems better than a Paladin class. That's pretty debatable. Alright, so this hand has turn 1 acceleration. Even though we saw Cloudpost, they could still be running some like random number of wastelands. Like you just don't know with these decks. Sometimes people just run wild mana bases because they're like, we're colorless, we can do whatever, it doesn't matter. So for that reason, I think, although this is tempting, you know, you got turn 1 Wild Growth, you can Living Wish for the land if you don't draw it for the turn. But then, like, you don't even have an Enchantress. Like, you can Gloomshrieker the fetch land back. You could, which isn't the worst, like, you can keep developing your mana. You've got Swift reconfigurations that can take attackers off the board. But they're not great. They're, like, if these were Thin Ices, maybe this would be more keepable. But even then, like, you know, you can't cast Thin Ice off of a Savannah. So I don't know that it would be like Basic Forest on a Wild Growth and then get Karakas. I think it's just, it's not quite keepable. This hand is also not great, right? We don't have the acceleration. I feel like maybe I should have gone to 5, but I think I keep this and ship a land because the Living Wishes can become lands. But it's really not something I'm happy to keep. I probably should have gone to 5, to be honest. I don't think the card quantity matters so much, especially if we're on the play. They're not going to turn 1 Thought-Knots here. So like just getting that turn 2 Enchantress is probably enough to not care about mulling to 5. Okay, turn 1 Chalice. Not the end of the world. Awkwardly, I can't Living Wish for Spinner here. But I can just get the Enchantress. Okay, there's the Spinner. So this is pretty awkward. Like, the sequencing is awkward. Like, if we'd had a Wild Growth, this would obviously be a much better situation for us. That said, I guess we do have stuff going on. So yeah, I mean, this is just super awkward, right? Because like now we've only got 3 mana, so if we are Ghostian, we only draw 1 card. We can't Zenith for Night of Autumn to kill this Golos, which I think can activate, right? 2, 4, 5. No, it's, well, if they have another Soul Land, or, yeah, another Soul Land, they can activate. So I think I'd play this Ron, though. I don't know. We don't have any really great options. We could, if we brought in Oof, I didn't really think about Golos. Like, if we had Oof, we could, you know, just Utopia Sprawl to have the mana for next turn. Zenith for Oof. For Zenithing Fatigue isn't as good, although it might be an option. Or Gothian into just draw 1 card and either get a mana, or we could play the mana first, and then Argothian plus Miri's Guile, and just plan to try to have a big turn next turn. That might be better, actually, because then we still have the Zenith and the Wish, and a Swift reconfiguration is game over. So that probably was better. What I do instead, I think, is probably not very good. I Living Wish for the Karakas to get the Golos out of there, so it can't activate next turn, but that of course gives him another Golos enter the battlefield ability, which isn't ideal. And then to also get the Guile in play. Ugin is rough. Well, there was no Swift reconfiguration, so at least we weren't completely punished for not doing that line. So Skullus is now active. We have to kill him. Thanatia rips our only card, which is enchantment. What do I do here? If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't Sithis plus Zenith. I think I just misplayed this turn again. I don't know what was going on this round. Maybe I was getting hungry. Yeah, like clearly I should have Zenithed, killed the Golos. It doesn't draw us any cards, but we do get a shuffle. I needed to kill the Golos here. They only had 2 cards in hand. As long as we don't kill any of these spirits, and they're kind of just down to whatever's in hand, which could be shit. They do run a lot of land, so they can just flood out. Oh, there's a Kozilek. Okay, we just had a Kozilek. So, I think I misplayed this round. I mean, the draws didn't help, right? Like, having to, game 1 whiffing, like, 3 turns in a row, and then, game 2, the very mediocre Maul. And there goes our board. With the Chalice in play, it would have to be like exactly like spinner into. No, that wouldn't even do it. I was thinking like, yeah, there's no way to get spinner into Abundant Growth, I guess, into Druid and Swift Reconfiguration into Living Wish. A pretty exact sequence of cards would have to occur. But yeah. Match 4. Game 1. This hand is iffy. Obviously, if our Utopia Sprawl survives, we've got 2 draws to find another land. We can Living Wish for a land. And then, like, all of this is castable off of 2 mana, just the Zenith isn't. I mean, the thing is, our curve is extremely low, so I think I'll keep this on the draw. Depending on what they're on. Okay, so this is Hammer Time. It's a mainly modern deck that uses Sigarda's Aid and then some other Pure Steel Paladin, I think, to cheat Colossus Hammer into play effectively and just, you know, swing with really big cheap guys that are equipped with a +10/+10 hammer or Ink Moth Nexus. So it is a very aggressive deck, but with very little interaction. So that's a reasonable draw. That, you know, for a card that's not a land, we can Living Wish for like a Caracas and hold up Swift Reconfiguration, which will also make the hammer fall off. But unfortunately, they just have the turn 2 kill. They just had this 4-card combo too, of which are redundant pieces. Plus the mana, which is pretty questionable in a deck like this. But yeah, they got it. They got the turn 2 kill. Alright. Alright, we're in game 2 now. Okay, so the Witch House was the version of Enchantress I was running for a few years, which was using Living Wish as kind of a control piece. And in that version of the deck, you would often side out Living Wish and bring in cards versus a variety of decks and situations, especially if you're on the draw. because Wish can be slow. And these kind of fast decks are a deck where you would think about that. I believe that I will do that game 3 when I'm on the draw, spoilers. But game 2, it's more awkward in this list because Living Wish is part of the combo in this list. What I opted to do is just not sideboard at all. Just rely on being on the play, mulling into an aggressive start because card quantity doesn't matter. They are probably running like virtually no interaction. So I'm really just trying to go for speed here. So this is a good hand. Nice to see after last round. So turn 1 acceleration. Turn 2 Enchantress plus 1 mana enchantments, and then Living Wish for backup or to be part of the kill. Let's go. I doubt they run Wasteland. I could have just like gotten the Savannah, but decided not to take that chance. Piercesteel Paladin is scary. Unlike Sigarda's Aid, it doesn't let them cast the hammer at instant speed. And unlike Sigarda's Aid, it's also still shut off by Collector Oof, notably. Sigarda's Aid gets around Collector Oof because just when it comes into play, you equip it. Piercesteel Paladin makes the equip cost 0, but it's still an artifact activated ability. So yeah, we are just going to see if we can't go off a bit here. Let's gain some life. That'll be important. Being above 20 means that just double hammer off of a creature that's not Inkmoth Nexus isn't very important. Well, isn't lethal, rather. It's still important. Cranial Plating, not as scary as hammer. Okay, there's a hammer. Okay, they are swinging for an awful lot this turn. 16, in fact. We'll take it on the chin. I think about blocking because we have the redundant Sithis, but I decide, fuck it, let's just let it go. Let's Solitude the Paladin, which also takes care of the equip. Destroy their other creature. They do have an Ink Moth now, so if they've got another trick, they could equip. So that is a little scary. Swift Reconfiguration is a great draw. These are answers to Ink Moth. Now we have the combo. So I have to debate, do I just win here and give that information away? Or do I sit and chill? I actually I think about this for a while. I've got clock. This is not a long, grindy matchup. I opt to keep that information secret if I can. I do consider this to be a valuable trick. And so I want to keep it hidden, if possible. Because next turn we win for sure, we'll just be able to hard cast Emrakul next turn. All we have to do is find a wish. Yeah, we've got oodles of mana. I just have to leave all my blockers just in case. Especially well, no. This would have just traded with, or died, but gained us 3 life. I'd rather just have it as a blocker that still gains 3 life. I'm going to keep double Swift Reconfiguration open off this Abundant Growth Utopia Sprawl. They get a construct. I forgot that this, of course, gets hammer, and Sigarda's Aid isn't based on cast, it's just when it enters the battlefield. So that makes sense. So they do have the Infect 11/11, and they have the extra mana to give it flying again because the hammer makes it lose flying. So we did have to break out the Swift Reconfiguration. And then gain some life here, whatever. There's the Living Wish. We'll just cast Emrakul. We could just yeah. I forget how we go about this. I mean, yeah, whatever, like, we can give it double strike and make it huge, in addition to, you know, the fact that they're losing 6 permanents, or we can just find the Living Wish for the Caracas. This game's over, obviously. Game 3. So game 3, I do opt to side out the Living Wishes, and actually I opt to side out the combo, which I'm not sure about, but the reason I'm doing that is because I am bringing in Collector Oof. Without the Living Wish for Emrakul, I'm not sure the combo is, even if I do draw it and execute it. I think you have to either bring in both the Druids, which I wasn't sure about, or just take them out and use Swift Reconfiguration as a control element. And against this deck, it is a pretty good control element because they're mainly just using their creatures as attackers. So for that reason, I take out the combo, I leave in the configurations, I take out the wishes, I bring in Oof, Knight, Boseiju, the 4th Argothian, the 3rd Spinner, the Solitude. I guess that's it. This hand is extremely questionable, obviously. We've got 2 mana, which we assume they can't mess with. If we draw a land, we could have the good start with the Argothians, but I'm more interested in this Collector Oof. There are some hands against them where Collector Oof isn't going to do anything, and other hands where it's going to be completely busted. I opt to keep it and see. If they've got a hand where it looks like Oof isn't going to do anything, which this is not, we can lead with the Enchantress. So double S for Sentinel start. Pretty rough. I am going to go ahead and accelerate because we didn't draw land. This does suck. I don't like giving them 2 cards, but they've, oh man, they've set up beautifully into this Collector Oof. And I'm not going to give them cards. At this point, they're down to 2 cards in hand, and like a bunch of cards that do nothing, right? The Ink Moth makes mana, nothing else does. This Cranial Plating can't equip. This Sentinel can't tap for mana. They've got a couple of 1/1s that can attack into our 2/2. They do tax us on our turn, but in the meantime, they're down to 2 cards in hand. So I'm fine just slowing this game down, because that is what they absolutely do not want to do. We had drawn the Windswept Heath last turn, but not drawing a 3rd land is a bit rough here. I'm going to lead on the Argothian. Next turn we can play a Wild Growth, pay for the taxes, and just keep developing our mana. Hopefully that draws us a land. That's 2 cards to draw a land. I mean, we could Abundant Growth and make it 3 cards, but I'd rather have the for sure mana next turn off the Utopia Sprawl. I'm not going to crack this because I want to draw lands. Okay, still not a land. Okay. Yes, I just absolutely, again, just do not want them drawing cards. Okay. Now we're in a good position because what we can do is tap this 3 mana land onto the Savannah for Utopia Sprawl, pay both taxes, and from there on, we're good because Esper Sentinel only affects the first spell each turn. Yeah, we can go hog wild here. I would like a Sithis to be gaining life here. There she is. They do have an Ink Moth Nexus, notably. Okay, so that's scary, because it's another mana, and 2 turns from now it might turn into something relevant. We'll go ahead and get that out of the way. The Boseiju is a good pickup. It's something I wouldn't like to use because it does give them a Plains. They absolutely play Plains, obviously, which is, you know, white mana is something they don't have right now. They could easily be holding Swords to Plowshares for this Oof and just not be able to cast it. So I wouldn't like to use the Boseiju, but it's a great emergency button if that Ink Moth somehow attacks for lethal. Solitude's also a great pickup. Okay, there's white mana. That's scary. I guess they don't have Swords to Plowshares because they could free up their whole board. Okay. Now we are ready to go on the offense. and still have Solitude and Boseiju backup. Boseiju will only cost 1 because of Sithis. Wait, no, we need to leave the mana. Yeah, we need to leave this Triland open because of Karakas can bounce the Sithis, and then therefore make our Boseiju expensive. So we can keep our reconfiguration Boseiju and Solitude up as shields, and still go for the lethal attack here that needs to be blocked in some capacity. So they've committed to making a 9/9. It's our turn. There's Paladin class. They can't cast shit. They've used all their mana that they're able to use. So we're free to just destroy switch reconfiguration this token, and this is now a lethal attack. Just take it out of combat. They don't have the ability to crew it, and even if they did, we're past blockers, so the trample gets through. Trample on the elementals, an extremely relevant keyword that a lot of people actually don't seem to notice. This is a Storm player. I don't honestly know if they have a particular preference within that field, but they tend to be playing, the Dark Ritual Storm decks of some variety. My memory is they also sometimes run really wacky sideboard cards, but maybe that's someone else. I'm gonna keep this because it does have potential to turn 3 combo, which is, I think, probably our best shot. I mean, we could be aggressively mulling into the turn 2 combo, but since there's only 1 druid, that's extremely unlikely. That's a great draw. So we just hope to make it to our turn 3, which again isn't especially likely since we lost the die roll. The odds of them not going off before turn 4 as a Storm deck, it's just not great. Especially they spent their first turn doing nothing, which is scary because it means that they're just probably missing 1 piece. Another decent pickup in that it's a lot of potential mana. I'm going to hold off on the druid since, again, if we find the combo piece, it has haste. We just need to survive. They use Infernal Tutor to get Cabal Ritual, so their hand includes 2. We somehow made it to turn 3. Can we do it? Can we find the switch reconfiguration? So, how to best go about this turn? So we'll need 3 mana open, of which 1 has to be green and 1 has to be white, and the other doesn't matter. I think we start, with the Wild Growth, because it's free. No reconfiguration. I should have just, I shouldn't have done that. Now I can't win. I don't know what was going on Saturday. But I mean, if we cast the Presence, we have 1 draw to find the switch reconfiguration. That's not it. That's not it either. None of these are it, actually. I suppose, well... Yeah, okay. Well, there's no way we're not dying this turn. And sure enough. I thought about just conceding there not to reveal the combo, but I guess they can. Ad nauseum isn't deterministic, but that's a very good one, isn't it? Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, LED. They don't even need to go very deep into it. They don't feel the need to, even though they clearly aren't running any 12 mana cards. Yeah, we're dead as hell. And that's it. Alright. Yeah, opponent had a slow start, so we had a chance there, but unfortunately we could not find the car maker to take advantage of it. Game 2, I take out a couple Paladin classes. They don't generally run many instants, they might have bounce, that's about it. So I bring in the Gaddock Teague and the Choke. I feel like those are self-explanatory. Our goal again here is just to race with the combo or find a Gaddock Teague. slow them down or choke, catch them with a good choke. This has a fast start. It unfortunately doesn't have a target for the swift reconfiguration, so that's awkward. You know, so if this were Sithis, this would be actually a much better hand. Also because we'd be gaining life, of course. Yeah, so unfortunately they did duress our paladin class. And that is also not an enchantment or a way to turn these reconfigurations live. I'll go ahead and thin. And 19 is the same. But 20 is a bit different. Living Wish is interesting because it does give us Oof, which is also a way to turn on Swift Reconfiguration and slow them down. But it obviously also shuts off our combo, which shouldn't matter, especially we've only got the one Druid and we can just Zenith for something else, like, you know, Gaddick. I'll attack first and get my 2 damage in before I turn this into a car. Yeah, if this were Sithis, this hand would have been so much better. We would have gained so much life. There's the one of Devoted Druid, of course. I'll go ahead and, oh, I tapped a drawn. I could have drawn the extra card this turn. Yeah, I tapped drawn and wasn't able to get this onto the Druid, which I would, even though, you know, we've got the Oof in play, but, and they've got the Chain of Vapor now, so, I opt to, like, my land is not especially relevant. I'll get this enchantment, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure they're going to win this turn. They are at 12, but yeah, they don't actually need to ad nauseum now. They just, because of all this life we paid with fetches, they don't need to ad nauseum. So, like, if this had been the Sithis, you know, that would have been a huge difference instead of Argothian. Oh well. Obviously a bad matchup, so I'm not, like, salty about it. But, you know, both of those games actually were games that we played in. So, you know, slight differences could have made a difference. Being on the play with this hand, we are obviously reliant on drawing a second land. We have the Abundant Growth. If we play the Abundant Growth, we draw... I looked this person up. They tend to play Delver. Our first Delver matchup, which is, you know, a large justification for running Enchantress is the Delver matchup. This is the kind of hand that could go either way in this matchup, because it's like... It would probably be a mull on the draw, actually, because, like, if this Wild Growth gets dazed, we're just fucked. Yeah, I mean, our curve, again, is low. We have the Sithis, which is nice, because it tends to resolve and then draw a card and gain a life, even if it then dies to Bolt. That's not a huge deal. I think I'll keep, but it is, obviously, this hand obviously comes with risks. Delver go. Okay, Abundant Growth into Abundant Growth. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I want the land. Okay, no land. But we do have white mana now. We have the Living Wish, which is nice. We could actually Living Wish for Sanctum and, like, Paladin class, Swift reconfig. Opponent ponders. Doesn't shuffle. What did they reveal? Yeah, they had the bauble to help them flip. And they revealed a brainstorm. Okay. So that wasn't a blind flip. Sanctum is a fantastic draw, as I was even thinking about wishing for this. This allows us to do a couple things. So we can sit this first. If they don't force it, we're actually in a really good position. If they do force it, we can actually, they'll be down to 3 cards. We could Zenith for an Argothian, and hopefully one of those 3 remaining cards isn't Daze. If it is Daze, that's 2 remaining cards, plus a card for the turn, and we hope one of those 3 isn't a Wasteland. I guess they do get 2 Scries also with the DRC with this sequence of events. However, if they let it resolve, which again they often will, because I think their thought process is I need to save the forces for the Zenith and the Argothians, which I have no other way of dealing with. The Sithis can be lightning bolted, but we're going to have some fun instead. The Sithis resolves. Fantastic. Paladin class. Now they have to force this or force nothing. Swift reconfiguration are Sithis. We're now back up at 19. And they have no way of getting rid of Sithis, which is a constant source of card advantage and life gain. And we drew another land, which is good. So if they don't find a Wasteland here, they're in real trouble. If they do, then, it's still anybody's game, I think. They don't. So, I think, especially now they're tapped out, and we have Paladin class in play, so everything we're doing is resolving, and everything we're doing involves, now that we drew that, infinite mana, and we have the Living Wish. So, yeah, game's over. So again, the ability to just combo off, I think we had this game anyway, but, we did miss that crucial land drop, so, a Wasteland next turn could bring them back into it, but just having infinite mana instead means, game's over. And we have the Caracas, so, opponent not conceding for some reason. Just wants us to go through the motions. Maybe they think we'll give away more information, but there's no need, obviously. Okay, next game. Delver on the draw used to be a matchup where I would take out Wishes, but again, in this version, I think as long as I'm planning towards the combo, I can't really afford to take out the Wishes. I'll take out 1 Paladin class because, not that it's bad against this deck, it's quite good against Delver, but because on the draw it's worse, because they're up a land drop. So I'll just take that out for the choke, and that's it. Choke of it, obviously changing a 1 mana card for a 3 mana card against Delver isn't necessarily ideal, but I do like having the choke, and the Paladin class in and of itself, yeah, can be awkward against them depending on how the game plays out. Obviously this is a no-lander. I keep this. It's got double wild growth, right? So if they daze the 1, we've got another, we've got 2 draws to find another land. We can wish for land, and then we've got a bunch of threats. I'll shift the spinner. You don't really want the spinner that early against Delver. It just gets bolted. Whereas the Sithis, can at least, if you sequence it, right, can at least draw a card before it dies. They have the DRC Daze start, obviously their best start. They did mull into it. They did mull to 6. And follow up. So we hope to draw land. We do. Okay, and great. It actually worked out that we led on the sprawl. There's an argument for leading on wild growth because it can't fix your mana. That was honestly probably correct, but we were rewarded because we drew the plains, which meant we got to lead on that. And I do decide to lead on the Sithis. They're developing their board quite quickly. I can't afford to slow roll this game. They are down to 3 cards. They had mold, so it's possible that they don't have a lightning bolt. I also don't know if they left in the full set. The Delver opponent is probably bringing in some number of cards, and those cuts have to be made somewhere. on the draw, like, you could expect them to cut some number of dazes, but on the play, I don't know if that's going to be the case, so the bolts might be an area where they cut down on them. Anyway. So, they mill a Murktide. They didn't flip the Delver, so the Delver can't attack into our 1-2. They don't... interesting. So, let's slow down here. They played a Steam Vents and didn't pay the 2 life. So, like... But they also didn't flip the Delver. So, like, is their hand just, like a land, a Murktide, and some other card that's not Force? I don't know. Wild Growth's a good pickup. We can develop our mana, draw a card, gain a life. And go for the choke around days. I opt to keep her as a blocker. Our 1 damage in doesn't matter, but being able to block the Delver if it doesn't flip does matter. They do have a fetch. Okay. Let's go for the Enchantress. It resolves. I'll get Swifty on the Sithis for the same reasons as before. Just want it to be unkillable. Now we're at 19 with the choke in play. This game is over. They have to, like, have another land and the Borrower. And then, like, if we find the Paladin class, yeah, then they need a Borrower now, in which case we just redeploy the choke. Now they can't Borrower, or Petty Theft, rather. We can just combo here. And we can play the Destiny Spinner first. And are they going to make us do it again? Oh my god. Petty. I guess we could have just made 2 elementals here. I figured the Emrakul is actually fewer clicks, but maybe that's not true. Alright. And, you know, it'd be nice to run into this matchup more, but this was a very combo-heavy tournament for whatever reason. Maybe people are, you know, just tired of playing Delver or playing against Delver, which is understandable at this point. It does need, I think Murktide needs to be banned, putting that on the record. So we finished the Swiss portion 4-2, and we got really lucky because 2 4-2s got to make it in, and we were one of them. I know that our Ant opponent and our big Eldrazi opponent both made it into the top 8, so I think that helped a lot. Our first round opponent actually like dropped 0-1, so that wasn't great for our tiebreakers. But here we are. I don't really know what this person, like, I've played this person before, and I think they've always been, you know, an amiable person, but I don't really remember if they have a specific deck. For some reason I was thinking they were Delver. I was hoping they were Delver anyway. But that's going to turn out to not be the case. This is a good general hand, so I mean, I'm going to keep it. Island Ponder doesn't tell us anything, except that they're probably not on elves. I'll just opt to do this off the basics. Underground Sea is usually scary, so Baleful Strix. This could be Grixis control, which is historically an enormously favorable matchup, although these days it really depends on how many Narsets the particular build is running. You know, with Double Living Wish in hand, I feel okay about going up against Narset. And then Itagetsu's second right is annoying, but it's actually not the end of the world against us. And they do run Edict. I think I actually like kind of am going through the list of possibilities in my head at this moment because they do something, yeah, and Preordain actually should have clued me into their combo. But in response, just Swift reconfiguration the Baleful Strix, because I'm like, wait, what if they have set an Edict? I don't know if that made a difference. If I had saved this for the combo, It would matter if I draw the Druid or the Zenith this turn. But they Doomsday and just go off this turn, so it doesn't matter. So that's a turn 3 kill. We are up against Doomsday, which is probably the single worst matchup for this deck. The Baleful Strix does suggest that they're not on any kind of turbo version, that they're probably not running like the most like ways to get turn 1 or turn 2 Doomsday. So that's slightly good news, but it's still like the worst matchup. So I talked about running Scoos instead of Endurance. Obviously this is a matchup where Endurance would have been a lot better. And I guess we didn't run into any of the matchups where Scoos is good. But, I mean, I still stick by my decision, to be honest. We bring in the Choke. That's obvious. And then I think we bring in the Oof, which can be relevant depending on the pile they make. It's not super relevant pre-Doomsday, but post-Doomsday, if they have to pass and we see that they haven't included the Lion's Eye Diamond, like if it's in the pile and not in the exile zone, then the Oof becomes relevant. You really have to look for your corner cases, your marginal cases in matchups like this, or like Reanimator, where you're super unfavored. You have to think like, what are the potential sequences where I win? Because they're few and far between, right? So the good news is you have a clearer idea of what you need. The bad news is, of course, it's not especially likely to happen. Here we have a fast start, Living Wish, which is good. It is part of the combo, and it could be potentially useful to Living Wish for Boseiju again post Doomsday if they only have 2 lands in hand. In play, Boseiju has the potential to just knock them out completely, hypothetically. But again, you're looking for the corner cases. And we can also just turn to Enchantress and hope that we're still alive on turn 3 and can draw into the combo. I'll keep. Gaddock Take unfortunately does absolutely nothing against Doomsday. I mean, it stops exactly Force of Will, which, could force what relevant cards. I'm happy that they duress Living Wish, to be honest. That's a card that isn't contributing to them winning. Like, every piece of disruption they draw is good for us because all our cards are a lot worse at winning the game than their cards are. So, like, all their disruption is like, we hope they draw nothing but disruption, I'm going to Abundant Growth first because, like, theoretically I can find the combo. This does force me into getting the planes, which is awkward, but... Okay, we're close to the combo. We just need a Zenith, a Wish, or the Druid. That's 6. 6 immediate outs. And then Choke, I guess, so that's 7. They are going to Doomsday. Let's hope they don't win this turn. This is a turn 3 Doomsday. Can't be mad. Their pile does not include... Lion's Eye Diamond is in the exile, so they weren't going for the fast kill. But you can assume they've got it this turn. So we've got the Zenith, but they've got the Lotus Petal for the Paladin class. They think about this and opt to let it go, which is a mistake, but they probably weren't expecting this combo. Because we have double reconfiguration, we actually luck out. We get this one. We got, like, I don't play the Presence. There's not a need. We could. I don't know. It's not like we're going to deck. But we still have tons of gas. So there's the Wish. Alright. So game 3, I think I was aiming towards the combo kill. I take out the Oof for that reason. They also exiled the LED last time, so it could be that they're anticipating Oof. And so it's just the Choke for the Gloomshrieker. I don't think that's right. I think the Gloomshrieker should stay in. I don't know why I did that. This should probably be like the presence, the third presence, I don't know. Something that's not Gloomshaker, because the attacker with Menace is actually pretty relevant, especially if they've got Baleful Strix. You know, them obviously being at an incredibly low life total post Doomsday if they have to pass. So I don't know about all that, but I think I was just aiming for the combo kill here. This hand has turn 1 acceleration into Sprawl, into turn 2 like Wish or Gothian or Spinner. Depends. If we draw a land, we could have Gothian Abundant Growth. I don't know. This hand's actually probably keepable. It also has like 1/3 of the combo. I think I was trying to do better. This has 1/3 of the combo in the Mirror's Guile. This is probably better. So maybe I was right. Past me was right. Present me is wrong. Alright, we found a basic for us, so we'll use that instead of the fetches. Obviously you want to preserve your shuffles if you've got Guile. We've got turn 2 Druid. I will run it out. I didn't see Dazes in either pile. I don't think they're on Daze, so if they force a will, the Druid, that's obviously less than ideal. But we need to threaten to win. We also don't have the Living Wish, so there's a Living Wish. So now we shuffle. Go ahead and get the Savannah. Even if we don't find the Swift reconfiguration, this does give us 2 extra mana next turn. So Devoted Druid obviously is a mana dork, but you can also just use the -1/-1 for 1 time to make her a -1 power, 1 toughness creature, which obviously doesn't immediately die, so that's just like 2 free mana. Yeah, this was an interesting one because, like, if you look at their pile, there's like no counter magic in here. I think their hand is just like all counter magic, which again, you know, it's better than them just winning. We did have Destiny Spinner and stuff there, but we didn't have a Swift reconfiguration. We had a Destiny Spinner, a fetch land, and a presence. I thought about this for a long time. I opted for the fetch. I'm going to go for the Paladin class here because, you know, I have to assume that they're going to win this turn. And my only way to disrupt that, like the Spinner, I don't know, maybe the Spinner would have been nice to have for next turn, and we already got the fetch. My thought was, no, yeah, it probably should have been the Spinner. Can we get on Paladin class? This has to be forced. I can't take the chance of just, you know, letting whatever go. Oh, I thought We get the Boseiju. We can destroy a land. I think they accidentally accepted the shuffle, which was a mistake on their part. Obviously, because it ruins their pile. That said, their pile was designed, obviously, presumably, for 3 mana. So, this did slow them down a turn. It did unfortunately take away our Living Wish, which means that we are now not just a Swift reconfiguration away from winning. And because, yeah, I really should have taken the Spinner. Like, if we have the Spinner, we could, like, yeah, make the infinite mana attack for, would that even be lethal? No, but it would put pressure on them. It would, draw more cards, I don't know. This should have been a Spinner. We did get a shuffle here, so find a random draw. They have the force anyway. I mean, we have Living Wish, but there's nothing we can get here. Like, even if we had Endurance at this point, we're out of cards, so I don't know what could possibly be relevant here for 0 mana. We used our land drop, so Wasteland wouldn't be a consideration. Yeah, Spinner for next turn. Alright, but we're obviously not going to get a next turn. They're down to 2 cards in hand. Like, yeah, now they've definitely got it. They just cast Oracle, and that's it. They don't need to clear the rest of the deck. Especially since my card is known. But, you know, pretty happy with that performance. Let's go to the deck. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the deck's performance, especially in a very hostile field. I later found out that that top 8 had 3 Reanimator, 2 Ant, and the 1 Doomsday player, so not really a top 8 that you should expect to win with Enchantress, if you're at all realistic. I don't know, yeah, just very little Delver, actually. So, thoughts about the deck list? I mean, I still think this is a good deck list for a more expected metagame. It did well in this tournament, you know, put up a decent performance against a bunch of unexpected decks. Part of that is just against a wide unknown field, having a proactive I win combo is very relevant, right? A lot of Enchantress lists that I run personally tend to be reactive to a particular metagame, and then, you know, in those cases, if you run up against a bunch of unknowns, you can just have cards that aren't relevant in that particular matchup. And that can be doubly true with a Living Wish board. Yeah, any particular changes I would make at the moment? I don't think so. You know, Endurance and Wasteland are possibilities for the Wish board, but I don't think there's all that much room for cuts either. I didn't use Skoos or Grist this time, but I just didn't run into those matchups either, or Doomwake, you know. But those are all, I think, cards that are very good at fulfilling a particular role. So yeah, I don't know. I think I would just run this back next time I get a chance to play in a MTGO challenge. Well, thanks for watching. Signing off.